This week was a huge week for World of Warcraft, or not, and it re-raises questions as to whether attention to the game's many features is being spread a little bit too thin for the devs. Hey, it's Soul, and this is Warcraft Weekly, taking your biggest concerns and shoving them off for a little bit later. You can help support the channel by liking this video, subscribing for more WoW coverage, and catching me whenever I'm live. Let's first talk about Transmog. This is kind of my new natural state, because, player housing has been announced, and now I need a new obsession. The other week I talked about how costs are getting way too high, and it seems counterproductive when so many different kinds of transmog are being introduced to us on a regular basis. Meanwhile, we're just used to swapping out the pets and the titles we want to display. We can switch to different mounts, and in some cases customize these mounts with no cost. Meanwhile, swapping to other appearances we've already had to grind for or maybe buy from the shop has had this, increasing cost, effectively putting a tax on customization. To be fair, commenters were quick to point out to me how I only briefly mentioned one of the more obvious quality of life fixes folks want, and that's to transmog the slots on our character as opposed to individual pieces of gear. Now, I want to be clear, I totally agree with it. It's a simple solution for those many situations where, we get ourselves a new shiny, but we don't want to change our current appearance, at least not when we're out on the field. It's like, hey, let me do it on my own time. It feels kind of jank to mismatch, says the guy who does random transmog and pays for it. But I also want to make it clear, while I support a feature like that, it doesn't solve the growing issue born out of how much more transmog we've been getting access to, which, by itself, it's great for the game. We get more options, we got more customization, that's cool. The increasing cost, though, it threatens to spoil that experience. Many other commenters have pointed out, hey dude, gold isn't that hard to make, just do a few world quests and there's your 1,000 gold, but that just makes my point even stronger, because it's one thing to scrape up some coin to repair your gear and refill on consumables after a lot of fighting and a bunch of wipes. It's another thing to have to budget your gold because you're changing your appearances too much. And hey, by the way, the trading post is coming next week. That's why I'm a big fan of this idea to upgrade our current outfit situation and turn those into templates we can individually customize and then swap to without any additional cost afterwards. Now, maybe it'll still cost up to 1,000 or so gold to fully edit these outfits, but once I'm done, I think it would be a great feature to be able to swap to all of these saved outfits at no cost. Hey, it'd be really cool if, say, I'm a mage, switching between Frost, Fire, and Arcane, and I can assign a Transmog outfit to that. Or if I want to dress up in a mining outfit because, whatever. Or maybe if I'm stepping into arenas, I can have this blood-soaked uniform. Or if I'm doing stuff in the city and I want to dress down into some more casual city wear. Or let's say, as Guildmaster, we all get together for something and I'm like, all right team, switch to your official guild uniform. Oh yeah. And of course, what happens when we return home? I ain't gonna wear my full-on armor and try to relax. Dude, I'm home. The last thing I want to do is keep wearing pants. And with player housing in mind, there's room for some new discussion. What does transmog mean now when, in theory, we could have some piece of furniture in our player housing that'll let us change our wardrobe? Come on, having a closet is a very normal thing to have in this sort of feature. So should the house offer some utility perk where transmog is free while you're there? Because, dude, it's your house. But of course, the nature of what transmogrification is to have your gear magically changed. So does the meaning of transmog need to be redefined? Like I've been saying, I don't mind gold sinks. They are appropriate for this kind of game, and they shouldn't entirely go away, but we shouldn't leave this transmog cost situation alone either. My question for you folks is, what role should player housing have in this conversation, if any? Before we move on, let's take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, Factor. They do food delivery with freshly made, sealed, pre-cooked meals. You just need to heat up and enjoy, and there is a huge promo. It's 50% off your first box of meals. Now, never mind the sponsor stuff. This is kind of a PSA. It's just me letting you know there's a really good intro discount that makes these meals very comparable in price to regular groceries, making this a great time to try them out, and then you can decide for yourself if you like it. True story, I got a box of food coming in next week. Just just before Thanksgiving because me and the family were going to be like really busy with Thanksgiving stuff. I got some chicken dishes incoming. There's like a salmon dish I got for the wife. There's 8 meals in all with this box I got. Now, your costs are going to be different depending on where you live, but dude, check it out. It's half off with free shipping, so it's like $6 a meal. And of course, there's no obligation. You just got to click the link below. And if nothing else, hey, just see for yourself. Check out Factor, it helps out the channel, but as always, do not do this for me, do it because you see a good deal. Anyway, while Classic players are enjoying the fresh loot, the attention over at the War Within side is Incognitro, this indecipherable Felcycle mount, and apparently this insane adventure involved with trying to get it. I feel like in the timeline that is 11.0.5, Blizzard had this very meticulous plan around the timing of the guest relations event and the mathematical calculations of how many bronze tokens people would earn, not to mention how the upcoming 11.07 patch would have gotten us even more of that stuff, and we can conclude that maybe the plan would have been fine if they just wrote it out. But even a show like me has to admit, the bronze token math, it was a little bit too tight. And it's also made clear, once again, transparency and deterministic rewards, it's a double-edged sword, where we're going to have a number of people who will always take the opportunity to say, yo, it's too slow, it's unfriendly, I have a life and kids, because, you know, they've done the math, they've made their judgments, and, you know, they can successfully make a stir. But I digress, let's get back to this Felcycle. This is one of those events that captivates audiences, because whether it's being manipulated or not, it's still taken a while for the mob of secret finders to solve these sorts of puzzles, and it's a different kind of fun for people who are doing the finding and folks like me who are like watching them do it. A reminder, in case you're going to wait for the secret finders to do their thing, it's probably a good idea in the meantime to get the detective title earned from the guest relations event. It's one of the requirements to start working on this Felcycle, and the event is going to end after January. I can't say for sure if the other steps for this Felcycle that are still being discovered, if those are also linked to the anniversary, but conveniently, I did just upload a guide to help you knock out the detective portion of this thing. A link to that is in the video description. And once the bike is fully discovered, I'll throw together a very straightforward guide to take you through the process visually. But hey, let's not take away any acknowledgement from the incredible efforts of the Secret Finder Discord. Looping back to Classic, we got to see this week the relaunch of WoW Classic after about 5 years since it first launched, and then 20 years after the original game's release. For me this time around, the launch was kind of just another Thursday, right? Like, I'm gonna cheer for Classic and its fans because, A, more World of Warcraft is more World of Warcraft, but I'm under no illusion that Classic just didn't quite, you know, pull me in, and me trying to ride that and trying to be like, hey guys, I'm doing this stuff, you know, it would be a lie. Y'all would see through that really easily. Blizzard also acknowledges what's going on, seeing as how Season of Discovery Phase 6 also started at the same time, and normally we would think of that as like a big conflict, and that's on top of the Firelands phase for Cataclysm Classic just recently started. These fresh Classic realms only feature one server type, PvP, PvE, and Hardcore, and one extra for Oceanic realms. They're expected to have really big populations, and with only one realm, they're prepared to see these isolated realms eventually start to like taper off with fewer layers. It's pretty wild though, like, cause let's line up what is a World of Warcraft these days. Like, there's the mainline or modern or retail version, you know, the War Within, that's very easy to understand. With Classic, we'll start off with the latest thing, Cataclysm Classic. It's currently on Firelands, and that's on its own separate client. And then under the regular World of Warcraft Classic, on the client, there's like another pull down to help us guide us to, you know, the Classic era and Hardcore. So, you know, the first Hardcore that's still running, the Season of Discovery, and then the new servers for Hardcore and Classic era. Man. In a way, this is a lot of wish fulfillment for many players. A WoW for everyone, including most recently an opportunity to like start all over before the bots once again overrun the place. A bit of a pivot, but I gotta bring up the Game Awards, which recently announced its nominees, and I want to put a spotlight on the ongoing game category for this thing. So Let's see what we got. We got Destiny 2, we got Diablo 4, Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, and Helldivers 2. And on screen are the ages of each of the base title and the release date of its latest expansion or season. Now, I don't want to get into a game versus game thing, even though that's like the very nature of these game awards, and I won't pretend I know everything that these games have offered in the past year, or I guess months in the case of Helldivers 2, but I am a bit baffled that World of Warcraft, it got snubbed. It's not on here. I mean, after all, it's the theme park MMO. It just started the celebration of WoW Classic by doing it all over again, with opportunities for its fans to enjoy all of these eras with regular hotfixes and patches and updates, and a lot more on the way for WoW's past and future, all of it being accessible with just a single subscription, plus the box for the latest expansion, whatever. 20 years of history spotlights both the good and the bad. Now, WoW players tend to have a reputation for showing their loyalty and love for this game with a loathing criticism like holding a sword and shield. I don't doubt the cloud that's always going to hang over the World of Warcraft, but I'm not even talking about WoW winning this award. Just making the shortlist is a nod from outside of the WoW space that, it's just this acknowledgement that, yeah, the game has shifted gears a lot in the years since Shadowlands. Okay, that was a very long pivot, sorry about that. The point is we have lots of WoW, where I said years ago, before the first launch of Classic, players would be, they would feel split in different directions. And that's not necessarily a bad thing either. I would hate for the World of Warcraft experience to be limited to, just what's happening in Classic during a really long lull. And Classic was born out of a dissatisfaction of WoW's later direction in the first place. But also, notably with the modern game, the direction has also been shifting. It's more solo-friendly, with a bona fide endgame. Traditional group endgame is far more accessible with lots of options. And in the distant horizon, we're going to have a new form of long-term play or endgame with player housing. So my question is, are the teams okay? The team seems to be growing still. The modern game is being run by, no fewer than 3 game directors? I'm not looking for an answer. The point is the concern. I think the team is spreading itself kind of thin with so much to cover and a very tight timeline and players who they have to deal with who are forever and never satisfied. And there's that zero-sum question we sometimes or maybe always ask ourselves. If it wasn't for this or that game feature, if they stopped paying attention to that thing, would the feature that I do care about, would it come sooner? Would it be better? That's going to be the show. And as you can tell, light week if you're not a Classic fan. Next week, though, ought to be a bit more lively as we expect news on what's coming in the December trading post, but that also might be it with a holiday break, and we shouldn't expect too much outside of the team making sure the Classic realms don't melt. But I will have some cool stuff happening on streams as we get to Thanksgiving. Expect some giveaways of bikes and even trolley worms. That stuff will be over on Twitch specifically, so be ready to hop on a moment's notice for that. In the meantime, let's give a very warm thanks to everyone who joins me on streams. Y'all have been great company. To our incredible patrons, I appreciate the generosity over the years, and we can't forget about you. Viewer, you made it to the end, you fed the algorithm. Now, if you could, please like the video, subscribe for more coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.